Good morning. It's 9:30. I'd like to call the September 28th meeting of Athabasca County Council to order. The first item of business after the call to order is the agenda. I'll go through, as usual, the items that are on the must select and the others, and then we can add to that. So the items that we must discuss are item number 2, item number 3, item number 4, item number 5. Both points, I'll be adding something to 5.2, which will be at 5.2, please add multiplex. And item number 6.2. Now on your sheet beside you, 6.1 is listed as a must discuss. We're striking that because there's a clear motion in the agenda. We don't have to discuss it, only if somebody on the floor wants to add it. So we're at 6.2 as a must. All of item 7, item number 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.6, 8.7, and 8.8, which will be RCMP delegation. 9.1, 10.2, and that will be it. The multiplex question may end up, I think we can just handle the discussion around that immediately with following the delegation, and so we won't add another item. The other item on the must-have list that shows up is 8.6. And Councillor Crum would like to add 8.5. Okay, so additions to the agenda, there is 5.2 is the multiplex and 8.8. Are there other either additions, deletions, or items that you want to bring off the consent agenda?
There is one addition from the administration.
Okay.
And that is in camera 13.1.
Okay. What section does that fall under?
That will be section 241, advice for officials. 24 brackets 1.
Okay. So we're adding 13.1, advice from officials.
Correct.
Councillor Cromwell, your hand was going up.
You said 8.8 error.
RCMP delegation. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. I'd like to add 6.3 and 6.4, please.
6.3 and 6.4 are being added. Okay.
Thank you.
Any further? Okay, so I'll go through the agenda one more time to make sure we all have the same information, and the recording secretary is with us. The items that must be discussed: item number 2, item number 3, item number 4, item number 5, which includes 5.1, the detachments, 5.2, the addition of multiplex, item number 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, items number 7.1, 7.2, item number 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, and 8.8, which is the addition of the RCMP delegation, item number 9.1, item number 10.2, and item number 13.1. It would be in order to receive a motion to approve the minutes or the agenda. That's a motion. Councillor Cromwell has moved the approval of the agenda as adopted. Any further discussion? If you're ready for the question on the adoption of the agenda as adopted, all those in favor? That's carried. It would now be in order to receive a motion to recess the council meeting to go to public hearing. Councillor Anderson.
So much.
Councillor Anderson is moved. We recess the county council meeting to move to a public hearing for bylaws number 015 and 016. Is there any discussion? None. All those in favor? That item is carried. Good morning. But good morning. It is 9:35. I'd like to declare the public hearing open. I am Brian Hall, Reeve for Athabasca County, and I'll be chair of the hearing. On behalf of council, I would welcome anybody here today who was here today, if they were here today, to speak to this. Given that there's no one here, I think introductions seem a bit superfluous. The secretary of the hearing is Christopher Parker, who is CAO for the county. And we can skip that part of the script. So the public hearing for bylaw 015-016-2022 is now open. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you very much, your worship and council. The purpose of this hearing is for council of the county to hear testimony from interested parties. It is not meant to be a debate between presenters, and all comments must be directed to council through the chairperson. Only one person may speak at the time, and each person wishing to provide input into council will have the opportunity to do so. The ground rules of the hearing and the order of speaking will be: the interim manager of planning and development, Krista Wilkinson, will speak first to outline the facts and present her recommendation on the proposed bylaw. Members of the public who are wishing to be heard will be given the opportunity to speak. Krista Wilkinson will be given the opportunity to present closing remarks and or address any of the issues presented. Councilors will be given opportunity to ask questions. Council will then end the hearing and retire to consider the information received at the public hearing. Council will only consider matters raised at the hearing. Only councillors may ask questions of speakers during the hearing. If any person wishes to ask questions of the speaker, they must ask council to ask the question on their behalf during their presentation. And council will only ask the question if it feels it wishes to have an answer in order to undertake its consideration.
Before hearing from the public, if any should present themselves, I would ask Director Wilkinson to provide the background and explanation for the proposed bylaws.
Good morning. The northeast of 126224 west of 4 is located approximately 1.7 kilometers south of the hamlet of Rochester, east of Range Road 240 and south of Highway 661. Parcel has a titled area of 60.51 acres, and a portion of it will eventually be redistricted from agriculture district to country residential district. The MDP and the LUB both require an outline plan to be submitted for the redistricting and further subdivision. First reading of bylaw 015 and 016 was approved on August 25th. The adjacent landowners, agencies, and title interest holders were notified. Public hearing notification was also posted on the county website and in the local paper. The developer wishes to create one additional residential parcel for estate planning purposes. As there are already more than 6 parcels subdivided from this quarter, an outline plan is required to further subdivide. An outline plan is a statutory policy document that contains policy statements that allow the county to review and evaluate specific development and subdivision proposals. Thank you.
Does council have any questions or points of clarification that you would like to ask of Ms. Wilkinson? Ms. Wilkinson or Mr. Secretary, are there any written materials that have been submitted?
I will defer that to Ms. Wilkinson. Can you read all submitted documents?
Okay. So I'm just going to read from bylaw 15 because the referral comments were the same for 16. Alberta Environment, AP lands have no concerns. Apex Utilities has no objection to the proposed subdivision described in the file mentioned. Enbridge will review all planning document and development notifications to determine their proximity and potential to impact our liquid pipeline network. If your notification is in proximity to an Enbridge liquid transmission pipeline, a formal response will be prepared and emailed, and we receive nothing further. Alberta Transportation subdivision application and outline plan contemplated by these land use bylaw amendments will not cause any concern with respect to the highway operations or future highway expansion. pursuant to section 16 of the subdivision and development regulations. Alberta Transportation authorizes the subdivision authority to vary section 14 and section 15 of the regulation to allow future subdivision to proceed. Alberta Transportation anticipates minimal impact to the highway from the proposed land use amendments. And then we have internal referrals from the Director of Infrastructure, no concerns. And Agriculture and Emergency Service, there's no weed concerns, and drainage, the house is slightly up the hill from the road, no standing water. So those are the referral comments received back from each of the files.
Thank you. Does council have any questions or points of clarification? So at this time, does council have any additional questions of anybody, speakers, or the staff that are here? Does anybody feel they have not been fairly heard? There being no further testimony, I'll close the public hearing. It's now in order for council to discuss matters and for council member at that time to make a motion to take action to schedule it for later council deliberation, to postpone the matter for additional staff work or other reason. Thank you for attending the public hearing. I declare the public hearing closed at 9:42 a.m. It would now be in order to receive a motion to return to. Councillor Chamzik has moved. We reopen the regular council meeting. On the question of reopening the council meeting, all those in favor? That is carried 9-0. Item number 4.1 is the approval of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? And before I look for your hands, I will point out that on page 8, resolution CC 22675 should refer to CC in the motion should refer to CC 22674. I think that's just a typo. Are there any other errors or omissions? Councilor Mins? Okay. Councilor Mins has moved the adoption of the minutes as amended. Any further discussion? On the question of adopting the minutes as amended, all those in favor? That item is carried 9-0. We do not have a delegation scheduled until 10, so we will move on to item number 6.2 on page 39 of your agenda. I added that one because the recommendation refers to a recommendation to approve policy 3685 as amended. The amendments occurred at a different meeting, and so I would think that it was appropriate to replace the words as amended to as presented in that motion. That's the only reason for me that it's here. Is there anybody willing to make a motion regarding item number 6.2? Councillor Wallach.
I'll make the motion to accept as presented.
So Councillor Wallach has moved that we approve policy 3685, the local cemetery improvement program as presented. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, if you're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to approve policy 3685, local cemetery improvement program as presented. All those in favor? The motion is carried and the vote is 9-0. Policy number 6, or item number 6.3, policy 6270. Is someone willing to make a motion? Councillor Holland.
Thank you. I just wonder if we can't have a little bit of conversation about this before going forward. I just feel that we are a council as a whole, and to not be able to make, I understand that there's late letters coming or late requests coming in, that, those things happen. However, not to be able to be involved in making the decision for the letter of support, I find it a little bit troubling, being we are a council of a whole, and leaving it up to just certain individuals may create some concern with bias, depending on what it is. So I'm not really satisfied with the policy as it's written.
So you
Just
want
not-
to make a motion or I don't know, this passed with a majority vote to come in this form.
Okay, I guess more than, I didn't really write a motion down, but
Okay.
I could, maybe we
Or do you
could
just
send this
wanna-
back to administration to revise, to add an opportunity, whether it be over email, like it does mention, you know, if a deadline and or application date does not permit council to review, what is that amount of time? So we don't have an amount of time listed there. So I mean, does that mean 24 hours? Does that mean 48, you know, how many hours is that deadline? What does that consist of? Is it possible to put an email out to council for ratification at a further meeting? Does it happen very often that we have these types of instances where someone's coming in very last minute? So I just, I'm just not satisfied. with that.
In the last 12 months, I can recall one circumstance where it came in a timing where we wouldn't have been able to get it to an agenda, like something coming in yesterday that was due tomorrow. We would have been able to add it legitimately as an emergent item.
Mhm.
Something coming in, you know, tomorrow that's due on Friday. That's a place where you're not going to get it done. And I think the one that came in, actually, I think there was two. There was one from the Grassland Ag Society, but I believe we got that here. And the other one was related to hockey, trying to get provincials, just saying we generally support, you know, minor hockey. So you're, if I repeat your motion, then you are moving that this policy referred back to policy committee for further
Sure.
discussion.
Absolutely.
Is that?
That would be great.
Councillor Holland has made a motion to refer policy 6270 back to the policy committee for further discussion. Discussion from the floor. Councillor Anderson.
I'd speak against the motion on the floor just because we discussed this quite thoroughly during policy review, and it seems inappropriate to be bouncing things back and forth and back and forth and spending all the administrative time for things like this. Like, if we put this in for a purpose, and I think we need to continue on, adopt the policy, and in a year's time, if we find that we're having issues with the way that it's worded, we can look to amend it again. But for now, this does serve the purpose as we had discussed during policy review.
Further discussion. Councillor Chamzik, the floor is yours.
I guess, you know, like where my concern comes in is that making sure that the requester has that accountability of it for it to be coming in on that timely fashion as well. Because I mean, as we all know, we have a ton of emails and it's administrative time, and just making sure that that accountability is also back on the requester. I don't know if maybe that's something, a reminder or something on an email, or like the county highlights or something that could be mentioned as well.
Okay, thank you. Other discussion. Councillor Kapitanek.
To the chair, Councillor Chamzik. I was thinking along the same lines, and so would you consider that a different policy? Because that struck me as well. As, do we have something that says if you don't put your letter of support in say, let's say 7 days, like don't expect one, kind of? I mean, it would be really unlikely, but I think it would be unfair if someone say put in a letter today because we have a meeting today and expected an answer by the end of the day. But I'm wondering if that would be a separate policy. That's all. And this is just a question to you.
Councillor Chamzik, do you want to have the opportunity to clarify the comments?
Perhaps it would be, and you know, like those emergent items do come up, you know, whether you missed something and you didn't, you know, we're not all grant writers, so on and so forth. I don't know, I'll leave that up for discussion, of what the floor thinks too.
Councillor Wallach.
We had a policy meeting on the 14th of this month, and everybody had their opinions on this, and we discussed this already, and we approved it to come to council. So I feel like this is a waste of time that we're even talking about this.
Councillor Holland is the mover of the motion. You don't get to speak until the final. I'll give you the final word. Is there anybody else who hasn't spoken to this issue that would like to speak? I mean, I'll say that I'll vote against the motion because I also think we've had the opportunity to review it. We've had the opportunity to speak to it and the time to have done that and to be prepared to do that was on the 14th of September. So for me, I will vote against. Councillor Cromwell, do you want the floor?
Thank you. Though I understand the comments from both halves of the table here, I believe the point of a policy review is to make sure that policies are written in a proper way. And if there is an error, that's why they do come back to council for further discussion. I think that there is a little bit of change that can be made, maybe adding another policy, maybe making an amendment to that in regards to the time fashion that things come in. So I will be voting in favor right now of the motion because I think there's a little bit of work that we can do on that to make it a proper policy without having to wait a year to look at it again.
Any further discussion? Barring not that, Councillor Holland, the final word to you, and then I'll call a question.
Thank you very much. I echo the words that were just spoken. This is our opportunity to review what is presented to us, rethink it, have a good look at how that policy was written. And again, you know, things may pop up that don't pop up in a review meeting. So thank you for that. And I really think that this is something we should be reconsidering.
So the question is on the adoption of the motion to send policy 6270 back to policy review for further debate and consideration. All those in favor? 5, 6, and opposed? 3, the count is 6 and 3. This policy goes back to policy review for further consideration. Policy 6.4 is the letters of support. Councillor Minns.
I make the motion to approve snowplow flag fees to policy 3200 being $75 plus GST for non-seniors and $25 plus GST for seniors. And further to direct administration to require all residential snow plowing hold harmless agreements be updated for the 2022-2023 snowfall season with notification of such mailed out to the property owners and that currently have a valid agreement on file.
So Councillor Minns has moved the recommendation in your agenda, which is to approve the snowplow flag fees in policy 3200 at $75 plus GST for non-seniors, $25 plus GST for seniors, and further to direct administration to require all snowplow hold harmless agreements to be updated for the 2022-23 snowfall season with a notification mailed out to the property owners that currently have a valid agreement on file. Any discussion on this matter? Councillor Cromwell.
Thank you. I know we did talk about this and I'm not going to argue rates, but I think the thing I find the best in this policy now is the renewal of the hold harmless. And I think that will be a benefit to the county and to the residents. I'm very glad to see that added into it.
Any further discussion? Councillor Chamzik.
My concerns surrounding physical flags and, you know, with our senior population mobility, safety reasons. I really struggle with this as, you know, even the county itself offers services available into those yards and just making sure that they're maintained as well and able to be able to access those services such as, you know, whether it be fire services, community transportation, those types of things.
Further discussion? You've spoken, I'm sorry. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. I realize that we did discuss this in policy review, but again, that's not a live streamed meeting. These are very much for the public. I think it's a disservice not to have the conversation for the public so that they can understand where everyone's coming from, what everyone's opinions are. I am voting against this motion. I see that there are more cons with this than there are pros. We have a current service that has been working very well, as far as I'm concerned, with the exception of last year. Last year, we had the unprecedented snowfall. So I do, in the words that we had discussed, think this is a knee-jerk reaction. And that we shouldn't be making any changes this year at all. And especially this late in the season, when there's many seniors who may not have the opportunity to prepare for this type of change. We raised taxes in the spring. And with that, we had said we were not going to change any services. We raised those taxes to maintain the services that we currently have. So I'm not in favor of going against that word. I think it's extremely important that we maintain what we say and do what we say. I believe that this adds time and risk to our grader operators for having to bounce out of their machines to collect these flags at a time that it takes. I believe, again, I agree, the seniors' mobility issues and challenges for them to put those flags out and secure them, the stress. We're dealing with people who are in their 90s. I just think that that's absolutely unnecessary. We have a system in place right now that they have been using their hold harmless agreements until we can find a better method that flags are not required, which we do have. We have GPS on these machines that can be followed. We can possibly send an invoice if charging is what somebody wants to do. I'm not in favor of charging our seniors. I think we need to be competitive with what our neighbors are doing. We are looking at trying to keep our seniors in their homes as long as they possibly can. We've increased their taxes. We've increased water. So now we're going to add this extra bill on our seniors and our residents. And I just think it's extremely unfair. We haven't had a proper public engagement. We've, contacted as many people as we possibly could, or I have anyway, in the time that's allotted. And I'm here to speak for the people, not for the personal convictions around the table, but for the people. And I have not had one person say to me, we really need to scrap that service or in agreement with the flags. Everyone would like to remain status quo. So, I look at what is the justification for the $25? We have a grader system that's around $2.20 an hour, which is, $3.67 a minute. So with $75 for residents, that's 20 minutes worth of grading. Is that happening? No. There's very few driveways that take that long. So I'm, increasing these rates for what reason, I'm not sure. I haven't got the justification there. We have an Alberta mandate to keep our seniors in their homes as long as we can. We can't make this any more difficult for them than it already is. I'm concerned about emergency services access for people who may not be able to afford these flags, or for that matter, are too ill to get to the end of the driveway to put the flags in place. So I think that we need to have a lot more empathy and compassion for the people in our community. And I'm really against this motion.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak? I'm sorry, we're going around once. Councillor Cromwell, Councillor Capitan.
Thank you. I do definitely have some concerns with seniors retaining this program, and I would much rather see them have a $25 flag than not have the program at all. We have heard from our operators that through the director that, machinery is bigger, yards are still smaller, and some of them, they are having trouble. And the idea, I would hope, would be a little bit more accountability on the part of the resident, be it senior or not, that they have to go and actually consciously know that the grader is coming, making sure there's room for them to turn around in their yard, not just expecting them to show up every time the snow falls, and whether they're prepared for them or not. And so I think this might actually take some stress off our operators by knowing that when they see that flag, that resident knows they're coming, and they may have their vehicles moved appropriately, or just giving that space to the operator. I do want to point out, as we did, and as my neighbor pointed out here, this conversation wasn't held in a televised situation. And so one of the points I had made last time was that we are actually denying services to people that do not have a rural driveway through this program. There are many, many, many seniors in hamlets that have zero option to have their driveway or the access road to their home plowed without hiring a private contractor or relying on a neighbor. With that being said, private contractors charge a lot more than what we charge for flags. So if even with an increase, we're probably still only charging And I'm talking for a small amount, maybe even 50 to 60% of what a private operator does charge. And that's with no disrespect, because we've seen an also unprecedented rise in fuel. And fuel and insurance for equipment is huge. Speaking to operators that are insured to do clear snow privately, their insurance alone is like the major cost of their service, because they are then fully responsible for liability for slip and fall, just as our operators in our county is. And so we need to keep that in mind, that those who can't access the flags do have to look elsewhere, and they are making do, and emergency services are getting to their homes to the best of their ability, because they have to source that out. It is not against any residents or ratepayers that we have to raise fees. Everything goes up. I don't believe any council can or would have promised to not make changes. We've been charged with the responsibility of keeping the county's best interest at the forefront. And unfortunately, sometimes that's making the hard decisions to charge for things that cost money. We can't fight the fact that fuel is huge. We can't fight the fact that parts are sometimes taking months to come in, or labor is a shortage in specialized areas. And we have to accept that that means sometimes we have to charge more for services. And that is unfortunately the responsibility of anyone who would have been elected to sit in these seats this year. It's not a great part of the job, but we have to do it. Thank you.
Councillors Wallach or Gerlich or Anderson. Councillor Gerlich, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I guess kind of my purpose for being here is to try and maintain services and improve services. And it seems like we're spending most of our time diminishing services, especially when we sacrifice needs for wants. These are services that people need. And I just don't see that there's any excuse for taking away. We've done, excuse me, we've done it for years and done it very well. And I just do not have an excuse for diminishing services to people for something they specifically need. And all excuses in the world don't cut it with me as far as I'm concerned, because I do not think they're legitimate. Graders are still the same size as they always were. They're maybe a tiny bit bigger, and the driveways are the same as they've always been. And it's worked up to this point very well. And I'm tired of the excuses.
Councillor Wallach.
So at our policy meeting, we had the opportunity to change this policy to a fee reimbursement. And this would have allowed us to offer this to hamlets and people in the rural areas that, okay, their driveway's done, but can they shovel their walk? They have to pay somebody to come shovel their walk. So we had the opportunity to make that change, and nobody even wanted to discuss that. So I'm for this. I think we have to. It is costing us money, and the liability for these operators and the county is extremely high. I know, Joe, that you said that their driveways aren't changing, but trees are growing. Yards are getting smaller, and it is what it is. So, yeah.
Councillor Anderson, do you want the floor?
I was a lot more at policy review in favor of the reimbursement model, just because I truly believe that if our argument is going to be that snow plowing is a need, then the needs of all residents should be taken into consideration if there is a need, and whether that assistance is required to help them shovel their deck and their small parking area or their sidewalk in the hamlet, or to bring a grader into or a skid steer to clear their driveway. It's not up to us to determine whose needs are important and whose aren't. However, after lengthy discussions on multiple occasions, this is what our policy review committee had decided was going to be the best path forward for this year, with more consideration to come in the future. And the fact that policy review meetings are not live streamed, to me, is not an excuse to try and say that they aren't open to the public. You know, those agendas are published in advance and those meetings are open to the public if the public wanted to hear that discussion.
So there's been a lot of comments around the table and, you know, we're crossing some issues a little bit. I know at the meeting that is not included in this motion, we had a discussion to direct administration to research an electronic method to set up flags to get out of the physical flags. And that isn't part of the motion. I'm, you know, personally hopeful that someone will move a motion that addresses that after the fact. You know, when we talk about helping people in mobility, charging doesn't diminish the service. But what they need, and the people that I've talked to, I spoke to a lady in Division 5 3 days ago who welcomes the $25 charge. She didn't give me her own details, but she said, my husband is 89 and has trouble getting into the tractor. We just can't do it. But she said, the problem for us is the driveway is long enough that I can't, getting the flag to the end is a risk. So, but when we talked about the $25 charge, she felt that was a very reasonable way to manage use, make sure that it was when I need it, I'll do it. But it also wasn't in any way prohibitive in terms of the amount. You know, we've talked about water has come up, which is a separate issue. There folks on water are generally not those who qualify for this program. And the driveway folks are, you know, are going to be more rural. They are not in the hamlets. And, you know, I have a concern that we have many people in the county who have a need that we're not addressing with the program because we're restricting it to this blanket arbitrary line around age rather than calculating or working to a needs-based system. There are people who are younger than 65 that could use the program. There are people over 65 that have no need of the program. And so we're using a very broad racket to hit a much smaller target. And I think, like many of you, in the future, some refinement is necessary. But I will vote in favor of this because this is the consensus of our council through the policy review meeting. It's where we got to after considerable debate. And, you know, I think in the future, we do need to talk about hamlets. We need to talk about the services we provide there and why do they not have any kind of assistance on snow where we're willing to do it in more rural areas. Now, for me, there are two distinct propositions in this motion. And so I'm going to split the question so that we can vote on both. We've been around the table a number of times in the past. And so I think that not a lot will be added by continuing to circle, rethrash old straw. So I will give the mover of the motion the final word, and then we'll move ahead to calling the question.
Thank you. I guess I'm being the mover of the motion. I'm in favor of this motion just due to the fact that I know it seems like we're going to say that it might slow down service. It won't slow down service. If anything, it'll speed up service. That way, the onus onto the seniors to put out a flag so the operators know when they want the driveway done is, to me, is not a bad thing. It puts just a little bit more onus, $25, a little bit more onus on them to say they want their driveway done now. Operators have to get out every once in a while and actually exit the grader and walk around. Now, whether they do that to possibly have a cigarette, or if they just walk around just to check the machine or whatever. So they're getting in and out of the machine anyway. So to say that it's detrimental to them is it's not. They know how to get in and out of their machine. And yeah, I think it's I don't want to get rid of the program. We talked about actually getting rid of the program altogether. And with thinking about it and talking to a few different people, I don't want to see the program completely gone, because there are going to be times when a big drifting situation, big winds and that, is going to actually, people are going to need not actually just a grader, but the wing of that grader to push back the snow. So and for the charge $75 or $25, I just can't see it being that detrimental. Also, you know what? Maybe this will put a little bit of more onus onto the community and neighbors. That if you see a driveway that needs to be bladed as you're going by because you're going down to do your families or whatever, bang, you'll pull in and you'll help out your neighbor again instead of driving by. So I am in favor of this motion.
So the question is on the adoption of the motion to approve snowplow flag fees in policy 3200 at $75 plus GST for non-seniors and $25 plus GST for seniors. All those in favor? All those opposed? 2, 4. The count is 5 and 4. That motion is carried. The second part of the motion is on the question to direct administration to require all residential snow plowing hold harmless agreements to be updated for the 2022-23 snowfall season with a notification mailed to the property owners that currently have an agreement on file. All those in favor? All those opposed? None. That was 9 and 0. The motion is carried. Councillor Cromwell, you wanted to make a motion?
I would, thank you. I would like to make motion to direct administration to research an electronic format for flag delivery and to bring back at the earliest possible opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Cromwell has made a motion to direct administration to research an electronic method for flagging driveways and to report back to council at the earliest opportunity. Is there discussion on that motion? Councillor Holland, your hands up.
It probably has nothing to do with the electronically.
Then I'll ask
so-
you to restrict your comments to the motion.
Right, so I'd like to add something after. Please.
I think we've, okay, so on the question of the adding the electronic flags, is there any further discussion? If you're ready for the question's on the adoption of the motion. Do you want a final word or you're okay? It's pretty self-explanatory.
I hope.
The question is on the adoption of the motion to direct administration to research an electronic delivery method for flags and to report back to council at the earliest opportunity. All those in favor? That is 9 and 0. That motion is carried. The delegation is here, and unless there's more motions that relate to this, I'm concerned that we should take a break, and then let's talk at the break and we'll come back because we're already 15 minutes late on the delegation. 5 minutes, yeah. We'll bring the delegation at 20 after. And I'll go apologize to them for the delay.
dealing with. Then we added in property crime. Property crime within the Athabasca area, patrol area is always been an issue. So it's something, an area we want to focus in on, where drugs are the issues. People are using that as a mechanism to go after the people's property, selling the stolen equipment, especially ATVs, vehicles, things like that, in order to supplement their drug habit. So we wanted to focus in on that as well. One of the other big things that we looked at too is community engagement. Our CO, Commanding Officer K Division, has made it a big priority for the Alberta RCMP to focus in on making sure that we are doing town halls, communicating with everyone, not just councils, but with everybody from the counties and communities that we police, to find out really what their priorities are, not just what we assume they are. So we did focus in on that in the first quarter here. As far as the property crime stuff area goes, we end up training in Athabasca our members on property crime examiners. So we have 2 right now on staff that are property crime examiners. Now that's kind of like our forensic section. So our forensic section, they go into a lot more depth. They have a lot more highly skilled members. But in these smaller detachments here, it's really good to have someone who's got some of that training, who can lift fingerprints, who can examine scenes, look for the things that especially our junior membership don't recognize just yet as potential evidence to be gathering here. So we've got 2 members trained in that area there, and it's been highly successful for us in gathering evidence and finding out who's been committing some of these crimes. So the next thing is we have had every member take a crime prevention by environmental design course. It's offered through our internal system here, but it's also a course that's offered by Edmonton Police for not just police officers, but for the community. So crime prevention by environmental design is when an officer or somebody from the community has the training, can go to a business, go to someone's home and have a look and see if there are recommendations that can be offered to help better protect the business or the community or the house from being a potential victim here. So for instance, if you had a business that had a bunch of tree coverage over top of it where it blocked some of the doorways or an open window on the property there, then we'd identify that and make that recommendation to the person to maybe cut back the trees or find a different way of monitoring that either through CCTV or cameras, things like that. So it's one of my members did a presentation through a town hall that we did. And went through a bunch of the checklist components on that with the community. It was well received and a lot of good feedback from community members on being able to give them some tools to be less of a victim. It's not going to be 100%, we know that, but it does give somebody a chance to protect their property in ways they feel comfortable doing it. So it's been very good. Moving over to the drug side of things, I'm not sure if everybody's here heard yet, we did a search warrant that started out in town in Athabasca, and then the same day we ended up extending the search warrant out to a county property that was able to retrieve a bunch of drugs, a bunch of meth, a bunch of stolen property, a bunch of illegally obtained property at the residence there. And there's several arrests made out of it, and significant charges were laid in that. So it made those kind of things make a huge difference, because not only those drugs get funneled into our communities, they get funneled into places like Boyle, they get funneled into Lac-La-Biche. It was really, really highly well received throughout from the people I spoke to on it. The members at the Athabasca detachment have been working extremely hard. We are focused on the specific areas, specifically, like I said, drugs and the property crime here, where this year I've created a crime reduction unit position or a general investigation unit position, where I've taken one of my members off the call. He doesn't take calls. Well, he will assist with calls, but he doesn't take calls. It's not his primary role. His primary role is to deal with these specific areas here. He'll deal with human sources. He'll deal with search warrants. They'll deal with prolific offenders, which is the third area that we're dealing with as well. The prolific offenders, the people that are always seem to be in committing crimes in the area here. They come up with packages for those guys, and we work towards making sure they're abiding by their conditions if they have court imposed conditions. And if they're not, then we take them before the judge again and hopefully get them off the street here. So we've had a very good so far first quarter. Second quarter here, we won't go too much into that because we send out another report here very shortly. But there's been an absolutely ton of work that this detachment's been doing. And I've seen the call volume start to taper off, usually around the summertime. Things tend to skyrocket in the Athabasca area. Right now, it's been done really well. It's lower. Any questions so far on that?
Council, any questions? The arrest or the success you had, was that earlier this summer or was that quite recent?
It was in August.
Okay. So any questions, council, at this point?
So the detachment also focuses on, like I was mentioning there, we do town halls, we do community events and things like that. We recently had the TP event at the detachment there that we invited everyone from the community to attend. I have members that attend Rochester School and did a bike rodeo down there this summer. We are looking for those events, and whenever we have possible, we want members involved with the community because we need to get away from. We need to get back to what our roots were. We're being community based, and that's where a lot of our focus has been. So, where available, members are involved in the community in certain facets. On the crime statistics sheet, this one here with the orange and blue on it. The only area in here that looks kind of scary here is the other federal acts. It's gone up to 200% on this one here. That is generally in the north area there, and it has to do with firearms offenses and other firearms acts. So if we happen to hear somebody happens to report a firearm being shot off, but there's no witnesses to it, all they heard is a sound, that still gets listed under that category there. It also encompasses a bunch of the work that's being done, the drug work, and the other federal acts that involved in that area. That's just a ton of work that's been done in this to try and make our communities a lot safer. So that's a little bit on my area here. If any questions from that follow, please let me know.
Councillor Holland has a question.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I want to just really commend you for the work that you're doing in the community. It is it is noticed and it is well appreciated. So thank you very much for all you're doing.
Thank you. I'll just touch briefly too. I don't mean to jump back in, but I'll touch briefly too on how many members we have. During the time of this report, we are at 15 positions, 15 regular member positions and 4 public servants on the books. I have one that's on long-term leave right now, suspended, and I just received another member who's working his way back into the fold here from a long-term off-duty sick injury. So we are full staff right now, thankfully, and we're gonna be full staff here for at least for the next year. And that's a very good thing in this detachment here. A lot of the members I'm getting from Depot as well, they come with experience. They come with previous law enforcement type experience. So it's not a foreign environment for them to work in here, and they're doing quite well. So everybody's getting up to speed here. In the next little while, we have people going on paternity leave, and that'll make it short for a little bit, but not enough to impact our operations here. So things are going quite well in that respect. In April was our fiscal year. I expect another a position assigned to us, a public servant, which will put me at 5 for public servants, which is something we definitely need there in that area. The administration burden in the policing world is quite extensive, so it'd be nice to have that. That's a little bit less.
So my name is Gavin Berge. I'm the acting detachment commander in Boyle. We have a sergeant spot there, but he was seconded. The last time I was here, he was also seconded, so I've been in that position ever since. Actually, today is the day that the job advertisement closes for the sergeant, so I anticipate that the detachment commander spot there will probably be filled probably early in the new year. We'll have someone in that position. So other than that, we have 7 constables, all working. Some very new, but really good crew over in Boyle. To start with, back in May, I met with mayor and council in Boyle, as well as I hosted a town hall in Wandering River, Brainat. there was some issues identified when I started in this position with regards to off-highway vehicles in Wandering River and Brainat, and another thing was lack of police presence. So I implemented a Wandering River patrol log, and the members have spent significantly more time up there through this summer. At the town hall, overwhelming amount of people showed up. There was, I think, 50 people from those communities up there. And the discussion got a little heated at times between the campers, campground owners, and the residents, but we managed to come to a good solution. And every long weekend since, we've had a joint force operation with the Athabasca County Peace Officers, as well as our members. Fish and Wildlife was there as well, but they kind of did their own thing. The goal of that was, initially I thought, you know, we need to maybe lay the law down and with enforcement, but I took the approach of education instead of enforcement, trying to keep the relationship good. And, you know, maybe some people just don't know that if you're under 16, you can't operate a quad. And that was the majority of what we saw was youth operating a quad without supervision, helmet infractions, and registration and insurance issues. So we took an education approach. We didn't lay a lot of charges unless things were egregious or over the top. And we got really good feedback from campground owners, locals, and even, you know, people that we were educating were like, thank you very much. So I think we made a lot of headway in Wandering River area this summer. And our intention is to keep up with the presence through the winter months too, as the campers leave. I'm going to be having another town hall here in October to listen to how things went through the summer, and then we can maybe adapt our approach next summer to try to keep. My goal at the start in May was to not have to respond to any serious off-highway vehicle collisions or fatalities through the summer months, and, you know, knock on wood, we didn't have one. So I think that in itself speaks to our success. At the start of the summer, as Mark said earlier, we saw a major increase in property crime, and particularly theft of vehicles. So we managed to recover most of them, actually, and we've got some crime suppression initiatives in place right now. We're really targeting prolific offenders with overt enforcement. So, you know, we're not being nice, quote unquote. We're parking in their driveways saying, hey, we're watching you. You know, every time you leave, we mark in our notebooks. Every time you come home, we'll stop you. And as well as some other things such as, you know, bait equipment, things like that. And as the summer went on, we did see a decrease in property crime and theft. So that's good. There's been also an increase in Boyle of transient people from Fort McMurray, Lac La Biche, Edmonton of note. So there's not a lot of resources in Boyle to support people with mental health or addiction issues. So we really try to get those people the help. And, you know, sometimes we've had to drive them to Edmonton to, you know, an addiction center or somewhere, which is a little bit outside the box of what we might be expected to do or our job mandate, but I think it stops a lot of issues within Boyle itself, because these people just don't have the help they need. As Mark said, community consultations and engagement has been very important. And in the first quarter, we did a lot of really valuable community engagement. We again tried to think outside the box, and as a detachment, we came up with the idea during Wildberry Festival to have a 4-hour-long road hockey game on the road in front of the detachment, which there was probably 60 or 70 youth that came, and it was kind of just shinny hockey, and my shins were bruised for 3 weeks after. I'll probably cut it to 2 hours next year. And yeah, we're in the schools, and we're really fortunate in Boyle. We have a really good relationship with the community, and as a whole, they seem to be pretty supportive of us and the work that we do. Jumping to the stats here, really nothing to note. There's a pretty significant increase in criminal code and provincial code traffic enforcement, which the members spent the majority of summer really on Highway 63, 663, 55. The Outback Connector Road was an issue with speeding and distracted driving. And we got a few impaired drivers off the road and quite a bit of good enforcement out of that too. We had no major incidents until Saturday night. Unfortunately, we had a double fatality on Highway 63. So, I mean, all in all, I've been here a year and that's my first one. So that's good. And I mean, there's so many people on the highway that inevitably there's going to be accidents, but I think the numbers show that our increased visibility and enforcement is making a difference. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot for the first quarter. Things have been ticking along through the summer. We're going to be fully staffed again here soon, and life's pretty good in Boyle.
That's what we want to hear in
Yeah.
the paper. Life's good in Boyle. Corporal Berge, I was at the town hall in Brandon, and I can attest that, you know, you handled it very well. I thought it was an excellent event, and I hope that you'll consider sending an invite through Ms. Blair to council for the next one so that we can make a presence there too.
Absolutely.
Show
We will.
support for those initiatives that you're working on.
For sure.
Does anybody at the have questions or comments that you want to, Councillor Holland?
I'd like to echo the same comment. The feedback that has been coming back, especially from Wandering River, has been very, very good. And thank you again for all the work and the attention that you're spending to make sure you're out there in the community and the engagement with the community. It is so important and it is well appreciated. So thank you so much.
That's excellent here. My parents also live in Wandering River, so there's outside pressure too.
We have two questions, one from the CAO and then one from Councillor Champs.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation. I'm just wondering, Leduc just passed a bylaw for catalytic converters, people not having a permit for it. Do you see that as something that maybe the county should be implementing along with the town and so on and so forth in this area? Or is it just let's wait and see?
I'll speak for Boyle. We see very few catalytic converter thefts. The majority of the thefts we see is copper wire and industrial steel stolen from TELUS tower sites. Rural TELUS tower sites are a common thing, CNRL lease sites, things like that. But catalytic converters in Boyle only, we don't see that many.
I could say the same thing. Last year we had a few Cadillac converters stolen within town here, but it's not a huge prevalent issue in the area here. So I know Leduc has to deal with a significant more type of calls in that area. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just want to know, it's great to see these stats and, a lot of the downward trends. I really did enjoy at the Royal Ferry Festival watching some of that shitty. It was quite good to see and, the kids engaged. And I just want to thank you also for your guys and all of your guys' hard work.
Thank you.
Councillor Cromwell.
As my friend there said, Corporal Berkey, on behalf of Wandering River, we very much appreciate the step up that Boyle has done over the last year, the work that you guys have put into our community, getting out there, getting that education, being that presence, being able to see a PC roll through Wandering River and do a drive and bring out the other rural areas. It is very much valued, appreciated, and we look forward to continued collaboration. We thank you and all your members for their hard work.
Thank you.
I'm looking around the table. Councillor Anderson, then Gerlich.
I just want to say, Corporal Berger, thank you very much for your members' outreach, especially with the youth in our community this year. I know my daughter had the privilege of getting to tour the detachment about a month ago, and I still hear about those super cool police officers that are next to the daycare. And after the youth rodeo too, when your members have volunteered, I heard great things from the kids and how cool those guys were, and it really made an impact, and I hope you guys know that.
Yeah, I learned a lot about how hard it is to wrestle sheep that day.
And I think you've been here since the burger event across the lot there, but that I know was well received here at the detachment when you had the barbecue outside. That would have been the last presentation.
Yes, that attracted about 250 people from all around the community, that burger event. It was well received. I couldn't believe how many people showed up. We were busy that day, that's for sure, cooking burgers.
Councilor Gerlich.
Yes, thanks. I've kind of always wondered in this day when human rights are such a factor, why, when you can incarcerate somebody, take their freedom away, why when they're repeat offenders, they couldn't be GPSed or something, so that you know where they're at. I just, you do that with your pets to make sure that they don't get lost, and
I can't disagree, but
and the second thing is when your full-time job is thieving, and I certainly wouldn't employ any of the people I know that are in trouble in our neighborhood, and I don't know anybody else that would. So it seems that their only source of income is to continue stealing. I'm wondering if there is not some way that something could be created to employ people where they're required to go to work. Because man, when they're stealing like copper wire, that's a lot, that's pretty heavy labor involved in that stuff too. If they had a meaning, maybe they realize it's easier to work than it is to steal. Anyway, there's just frivolous comments.
I think Councilor Gerlich, one of the ways that people are required to work is called communism, and it's something that most of us are not really excited about.
I will say though, to your point about what the communities do differently here is something that I'm pushing now for specific people that are bad apples, the ones that are causing the most grief in the communities. Is I'm trying to get the community members, a community member that represents the community, to come forward with a victim impact statement. So that's their community's voice now to say that this person has been in our community for such and such a time, and they are causing us the most grief. They're always stealing, or they're always causing violent acts in the community. They're just a burden on the community. So that is going to go hold a whole lot of weight in the court systems, more so than somebody who's not really that familiar with the community, or not really that familiar with the internal dynamics of the community, speaking on that behalf. And I'm saying that for the Crown prosecutors, they don't have direct involvement with a lot of our communities here, so they don't understand what the needs are. So we're looking at different ways like that to make sure that that full picture gets painted, so the judges make the right decision to protect our communities. Different little things we can do like that will make a difference, I believe.
To either of you, do you know why post conviction that there's not more publication of photographs and stuff of some of these folks, so that when we see them in our neighborhoods, we actually recognize who they are? It might be a better question for Heather, but she's not.
There's a pretty firm line on privacy, and I mean, I'm sure if you've seen, like in the Edmonton Sun, when a dangerous sexual offender is released, they'll post photographs and the location. But for every Joe Blow that's a property criminal, the courts see their privacy as more important than the publication of their personal information, and photographs is the reason for that. And to speak to your point about an echo on Mark, what I've seen in my experience between Fort McMurray, Leduc, Edmonton, and now Boyle, is the root cause is mental health and addiction. And that's honestly probably over 90% of what our members are dealing with, through different various criminal offenses, civil issues, domestic problems. But the majority is mental health and addiction problems. And they're just, I don't think that the resources are there, or they just don't want help. So then it's on us to assist. So hopefully we make strides in the future to address the root of these issues and see an increase or a decrease in crime rather.
One of the things that is not public knowledge just yet, not that I can't speak on it, is Athabasca is receiving an RPAC position. It's a regional police and crisis team. So where a police officer works with a AHS nurse and they deal with the mental health side of things. With the people that are really in crisis, they'll come up with plans to help deal with those people, get them to the right resources, and they also provide education to detachments on how to deal with anybody that has struggling in the area here. So they put it out for posting. I know it's closed now, and I'm not sure if they've selected anybody, but this is going to be a regional position. It's not going to fall directly under me, but it will be housed in my building, and they'll look after both Boyle, Athabasca, Damaray, as far as I know, all the way to Mayerthorpe. So it's quite the big area they have to cover, but it's going to be an added bonus, added benefit to each of us.
That is really good news.
So.
Councillor Mintz.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for all the great work that the police are doing around here and that, and great ideas on the impact statements. Because yeah, exactly, they don't understand what's happening. The prosecutors don't understand what's happening in the community at the same time. That's a great idea. This other mental health person, great. Probably be pushed to the extreme, but hopefully be able to get more, because it is mental health is a real problem. The other thing is commend you on, and I think it's very important getting to the youth. Getting the youth on the police's side before they get on the other side is very, very important. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for the update and for, again, as Councilor Mintz said, the work you do in the community. And we look forward to seeing you soon, and leave any final closing comments to you.
I just appreciate everybody's support here, and definitely if you have any concerns, questions that you don't want to raise in the meeting here, both of us, I know, are always available to answer your questions or help out where we can. So appreciate all the support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob, Mark. We get a lot of support in Boyle from Boyle itself, the county, and Buffalo Lake as well. And we're really appreciative. It makes our job quite a bit easier when you have that support.
Thanks again. Council, we have a delegation at 11. I would propose we tackle one or two items and then take a 5-minute break before that. And so thanks again, gentlemen. I'll let you go. The next item on our agenda is that a note from this. Okay. Sorry, I was distracted. The next item on our agenda is page 52, item number 7.1. It is the bylaw, and I was going to. Councillor Gerlich, do you have a motion you'd like to make? Yes. Councillor Gerlich would like.
You took me by surprise. I would like to make a motion to concur with the recommendation.
Councillor Gerlich would like to move first reading of bylaw 0152022.
That's exactly what I said.
Second reading, sorry, my apologies. Is there any discussion on that item? Seeing none, if you're ready for the question is on the adoption of second reading for bylaw 0152022. All those in favor? The motion is carried 9-0. Is there anyone willing to move third reading? Councillor Kapitanek. Councillor Kapitanek has moved third reading of bylaw 0152022. Is there any discussion? Given that I see none, the question is on the adoption of third reading of bylaw 0152022. All those in favor? The motion is carried. The count is 9-0. Item number 7.2 follows 7.1, and it is second reading of bylaw 0162022. Councillor Gerlich, do you want?
So moved.
Councillor Gerlich would like to move second reading of bylaw 0162022. The changing of the from an agriculture district to a country residential district. Is there any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of second reading of 0162022. All those in favor? The motion is carried and the count is 9-2. Councillor Holland, did you want to move third reading of this bylaw? Councillor Holland has moved third reading of bylaw 0162022. Is there any discussion? Okay. The question is on the adoption of third reading of bylaw 0162022. All those in favor? The motion is carried and the count is 9-0. It is why don't we take a 10-minute break or 8-minute break? We will reconvene at 11 sharp for the delegation from the multiplex. Oh, actually, sorry, before we take a break. The multiplex delegation will be my CAO. I believe this is a closed item, and so we should entertain a motion to enter a closed session to hear that item under section 24.1 advice from officials, moved by Councillor Chamzik to enter a closed session. All those in favor? The motion to enter closed is carried and the count is 9-0. And now we'll take a 9-minute break.
8, 7, 9.